Okay, today is the 10th day of Kislev, the 11th of December, and we're continuing with Mitzvahs Gida Nasha, Isra Gida Nasha. So, last time we saw all three levels, Rosh Toch Sof, the head, the middle, and the end. And this is in every sphera, that's what he told us. Every sphera has all three parts. And the reason that you can say that it has all three parts is these are the Chabad, Chagat, Nahi, the three triplets within each sphere. So he's giving us an example from Chesed. Just a good example. And his example was from Avram. And so he said that the Chabad, the Moichin, what we call the mind, the illumination of the mind of the Sphira, is the reasoning behind it, the motivation behind it. And this is where the pleasure comes from. Because the pleasure is actually one level above. So you have to say that there's something above. We said that's like the Keter. Because we're starting from Chabad. Chabad is the Mochin, it's the first three. And the Keter above that, that's the source of the pleasure that's in the Sphira, in doing it. So Avram gets, he has all these ideals about why one should do kindness to others. That's the Chesed. And then we said there's the body of the sphere, the middle, and there it's the feeling that goes with it. That's the Chagat, Chesed Gvura Tiferes. And there's also pleasure. And finally, he said that the third level is what we call the Chagat, the Nehi, and especially in Chesed, this is the Netzach. It'll be the Netzach, especially. It's all three, but it's especially the Netzach. And there you see a level of the Sphira that arises through argumentation or conquest or overcoming something. So what are you overcoming? So he explained to us, so we're V'zeu shematzinu b'Avram, right? That's where we were. We read this, and then we said, אבל יש בחינה שלישית והוא בחינת חסד הבא בדרך ניצחון שמנצח עצמו ועומד על נפשו להיות מוותר, הגם שאין בליבו כל כך לוותר, לא מצד אהבה לזולתו ולא ותרנות טבעית, אלא דרך ניצוח והתקפיה לבד. So if we translate this, however, there is a third level, the chesed that arises through conquest, victory, that's the netzach, when one conquers oneself, one conquers one's inclination. Because one's inclination is to do good to someone who fits the moichin, the mindset of who you should do good for. And firmly decides to be generous. And netzach can also be understood as being firm. אתה רוצה את זה באנגלית? הנה. תסתכל. This is so, and firmly decides to be generous even if one's heart does not naturally incline towards generosity in this case. In this case, he wouldn't give this person. So like these idolaters came to Avram's home, and they're coming as wanderers, and he brings them in, and he feeds them anyway, even though they're idolaters. This is neither due to love for the other, nor due to a natural disposition toward generosity. So it's not from the moichin, it's not because he believes in chesed, it's not because he believes in loving kindness, it's not because he has a natural inclination to give, but purely through determination and self-restraint. Okay, so that's netzach, determination translated here as netzach. He's determined to act the way he always acts.
Even if it goes against
those two. And self-restraint. And itkafia.
What do you mean self-restraint? You mean
he's restraining himself because he would have not given. Right. ובזה אין התלבשות התענוג והארת פנימיות הנפש כלל, כי מבחינה חיצונית לנצח בלי טעם כלל. And at this level, the third level, there is no pleasure. Meaning the pleasure, the keter, does not show up there. It doesn't shine all the way down. Because there's no pleasure. He's not getting, because it's itkafia, right? It's against his natural disposition. So there's no involvement of pleasure or the illumination of the inner essence of the soul at all. And the inner essence of the soul here, when we say soul, we don't mean the soul that God gave me when I was created.
You're talking more
the inner. When we say soul, we mean inner. Right. So there's no essence of the soul here. He doesn't feel alive when he does it. He feels that he
almost. I mean, in a sense, because it's going against.
Right. So he's almost like killing himself.
Yes, exactly. Right?
Rather, it is an external aspect of determination. It's just netzach, without any reason or taste whatsoever. That's what the nehi means.
No, there's reason because he.
No, the reason is from the moichin. The reason why I promote loving kindness in the world is because I believe in it.
Okay.
But that doesn't exist in my netzach.
There, yes.
Right. In the third
in a
lower.
Way, it's a higher thing. It's doing it.
Oh, okay. So now you're already speaking like a Lubavitcher. That itkafia is higher than if I feel something. That if I feel something, I don't know what I feel. Maybe I feel my own needs. Maybe it's fulfilling my pleasure, my onig.
I mean, if you're having the
right, if it's from my natural inclination, who said that this is?
yeah.
But if I'm doing it to overcome my natural inclination, so that is definitely service of God. That's because Hashem told me to act in loving kindness towards others. Okay, it's a very important thing, and somebody would say, "Why are you ruining it?" Normally, someone would say, if you have a person who has loving kindness at heart, he's naturally inclined to do good to others. So what would people say? Why ruin it with the Torah? Right? Why do I say ruin it?
Yeah, what do you
because
mean?
if a person has natural goodness, he should just act naturally.
And the Torah constrains
and the Torah constrains it. So we say, yes, a lot of times the Torah constrains it. For instance, I'll give you an example. You see a woman who is crying, and you want to console her, and this. So the Torah says you can talk to her, but you can't hug her.
Yes.
Right? The famous story with Rabbi Levin, that whenever he used to part from a woman who was sick, so they said afterwards that the hug he gave them with his eyes was 100 times stronger than any hug.
Would have done physically.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you're constrained. You can't show affection in a certain way. So somebody would say, "Well, you're taking away from the natural goodness of the person." Says, yes, in some cases it looks like I'm taking away from the natural goodness, but in other cases like this, where the Torah commands me to act with loving kindness anyway, so then I'm overcoming my natural goodness, which is limited in the end.
Which is limited. The loving kindness.
The natural world is always limits. It's always limited. There's no, and to put it another way is that if I'm working only with my natural disposition, there is a limit to how much I can give. At the end of the day, I'm tired.
Yes.
For the Rebbe to stay up until 4 a.m. and to give every person who walked in more kindness and more overflowing, even after 20 hours of being on his feet and seeing people, not being on his feet, just seeing people for 20 hours, that can only come from God's commandment. That means that the Torah gives me, right, because I have to overcome it, right. It's an infinite, and that's what you meant, I think, when you said that this is actually higher than the natural disposition. So now he says, "V'ader ze nimtza bifrat bechol mida shalosh bchinot elu." So in every sphera we'll find these three aspects. The moichin, the chabad, and the natural disposition or the feeling, the chagat, and the overcoming, the itkafia, which is, אנחנו בעמוד הזה שנראה ככה. פה למטה.
Is this a yisod in the whole?
Yes, 100%.
Of Bina Chachmadas.
This is in every sphera, it's this way. Every sphera has these three aspects to it, because every sphera opens up into 10. So the 10 are these three levels, plus that there is a pleasure, the keter,
Yes.
and there's the action
in every sphere.
In every sphere. And there's the malchus at the end also. Okay.
And it plays the same kind of a...
Right. And in each one it'll be different. Because like in Gvura, the mindset of Gvura will be that you can't build a world if you don't have limits.
I see what you're... It changes
the natural inclination, some people have a natural inclination towards Gvura.
Yeah. Right.
Or not natural, it doesn't have to be natural, but it's a feeling.
Right.
You have a feeling that when you put limits, for instance, when a person builds a house, that's a lot of Gvura. There's a lot of might going in, a lot of constraint. And so when everything is standing, so he has a feeling that this is an accomplishment. That's the feeling that goes into building the walls of closing something in and closing it. And then finally at the end there's the might that goes against his nature even. That sometimes I have to exercise might even against my child, let's say. Okay? Because otherwise I can't mentor them. I can't educate them. So this is true about every sphera. As in chesed, that comes from love. הנה האהבה היא המוחין, והחסד והוויתור המורגש בלב בשעה הזו נקרא חסד שבחסד, וגמר נתינה בידיו בפועל ממש, אין בהם התלבשות התענוג, הוא הנצח שבחסד. So for example, like we just said, in kindness, the love serves as the intellectual foundation, the moichin. The kindness and generosity felt in the heart at the moment are called the chesed of chesed, the kindness within kindness, right? That's the chagat. And the final act of giving with one's hands, carried out in practical reality, which lacks the involvement of pleasure, there's no pleasure in it,
is the netzach.
Is referred to as the netzach of chesed, the determination within kindness. So,
giving up of yourself.
Right. והכלל שבחינת הנצח הוא עשייה בפועל, ממש הוא בחינת חיצוניות ואחוריים. So, the general attribute of netzach represents the actual physical action, the exterior and posterior aspect of the attribute. This is the external. So that's netzach.
Yes.
והנמשל מזה למעלה, גם כן במידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא הנאצלות ממנו, הגם כי לא מחשבותיי מחשבותיכם, מכל מקום מבשרי חזה אלוקה, כתיב להשכיל על דרך דוגמה מעט מזר. So the analogy that we get from this mundane description, which is in the human realm, what we just described is how we see it, right? This is the psychological. This is what Chassidus is adding to this whole picture of where do you get 10 sfirot from. So we're saying we get 10 sfirot because we have 3 different aspects in every sfirah. The mindset and the feeling and then the action. So we understood this now. We gave the parable from the person with loving kindness and from Avram. These are parables from the mundane realm. So this can also be applied above to the attributes of the Holy Blessed One that are emanated from Him. You can say the same thing about the Sfirot themselves, meaning the way Hashem acts. We act this way, you would say, because we're human, but we're an example of how it is above. How do we know that this is an example of how it is above? On the one hand, we have a verse in Isaiah 55:8 that says, "My thoughts are not your thoughts." Hashem says, the way I am is not the way you are. Okay. Nevertheless, we have another verse from Job that says, "From my flesh I perceive God." From myself. Mibsari echazeh eloka. I see God through looking at myself. So again, on the one hand, Hashem is nothing like us. On the other hand, this is the only way we can have any grasp of Hashem. And we have to. Otherwise, a person says, okay, I can't understand Hashem, so there will be no relationship at all. No meaning at all. Somebody would say, this is how the child is. The child doesn't understand anything. Maybe it's a good, pristine state. It's true. When you daven, you should be davening to Hashem in the way that you don't understand Him at all. You should be like Isaiah, who says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. But when you're learning Torah, the whole point of Torah is for the mindset of Hashem to become my mindset. So the Torah has descriptions. So there we adopt Job. And Job says, from my flesh I perceive, and it's from my flesh specifically. Notice here that we're not learning from the flesh. We're learning from the psyche, from the soul.
But he uses the word flesh.
He uses the word flesh, mi besari. So first of all, this is a topic in and of itself. It's a big topic in and of itself. I don't want to get fully into it. I'll just say one small thing, that flesh and feeling have almost the same gematria. Basar and regesh. Basar is 502. Regesh, feeling, is 503. So I can't invent a gematria like this. Why? Because it's not exact. If it was 502 and 502, then fine, I can live with that. But it's not 502 and 502. It's 502 and 503. So I have to have an earlier source for these, to add the kola. Again, basar veregesh have the same gematria almost, just one difference. 502 and 503. So you find in the first one that I found that brings this is the Chavot Yair. Chavot Yair Bachach was his name. He's a great posek from the 16th century. And in Hilchos Nida, he brings this gematria. Why does he bring this gematria? Because he says he wants a source for why is it that halachically, from the Torah, we say that a woman can trust her feeling whether she's menstruating or not. Meaning not just whether she's menstruating, like in the fact that she knows that she's menstruating, but she knows that this blood is coming from her menstrual cycle, not from somewhere else. How can you try? We're skeptics. When it comes to the body, we're very skeptical.
So
how do you know the difference if blood is coming from here or there?
Yeah.
You may feel the same, or you may not have any feeling. But he says originally, halachically, the Torah entrusts her with that. Why? Because flesh and feeling go together. So if you feel it, it's the way it is. Regish. Not haragish. Haragish is a little bit. Their hair is in the psyche, is in the soul. But regish, I don't know how to say feeling. I don't know how to say.
Regish would be different.
Right, and that's how we translate it. Okay. I don't know if really it is different in Hebrew. But hergish is a word that's used to translate the Yiddish der hair.
Ah, really?
Yeah, that's and regish is like a feeling.
Okay.
In any case, so this is a general introduction to the fact that we use in the end parables from the mundane realm, especially from the way we are, to explain how Hashem is. And again, this is when we learn Torah. Okay, so we'll end here today, and God willing, I said halachically it's from the Torah this way. We don't rule this way today. Today we don't trust anyone.
Yeah, right.
We don't trust anyone about their feelings.
They actually trust it.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Today we say that we've lost our inner feeling.
Yeah.
We don't know where things come from.
When is this going to be posted?